Welcome, welcome everyone. So glad that you could join us tonight. I'm going to be popping over to our topics here in just a moment, but wanted to welcome everyone to tonight's tech topics where we will be covering exploring the night sky with apps. You've already met my pal Vivian. She's going to be our super checker of the questions as they're coming in. She's helping me out with this program today, so she'll be keeping an eye on that while we're live. Thank you, Vivian. We'll see you in just a little bit. And without further ado, my name is Lisa. I'm with the Tampa Hillsborough County Public Library, and I'm excited to get tonight's tech topics started. So this is one of the programs that I've been looking forward to this month because I love some stargazing. I'm a big fan of all things NASA and exploring space, and one of the easiest ways that you can get started doing that, if you're not sure where to look or where to start, is by using apps. So we're going to do kind of a very high level, broad overview of the topic, give you a couple of features to look for, some safety considerations and cost considerations, and give you an idea in general of what they can do. As with all things, there will be nitty-gritty details that you can go into in terms of scaling that up or down. We're just going to go kind of broad with this, but if you have very specific questions, I may be able to answer those. So go ahead and type those in as we go along. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into the safety and cost considerations. So something to keep in mind whenever we're doing anything online or with apps is that if you are not the person who owns the account that the app is on, or if maybe you're someone who might need to get a parent permission to do things online or do things with an app, make sure you take that into consideration. We want to make sure we're always working with devices safely when we're online, and we want to make sure we're not spending money that we're not supposed to or wanting to spend. So we'll kind of look at some of the different tags that you might see on apps when there's free apps, but might have upgrades available or free trials that you would then have to pay for. So I'll kind of give you some examples of those things to look for and some of those considerations as we go into the actual demonstration and look at the apps that I picked up for tonight. Another thing when looking at the safety considerations for this is these apps are all going to want location and camera access. It's kind of across the board for a lot of the astronomy apps is that they're going to ask you for that permission. Can they use your location services? Can they have access to your camera? And there's two reasons they do that, but it's not necessary. It's optional. They will want you to click it because it works a little smoother that way in some cases, but it is not necessary on any of these apps to actually have the location enabled in order to use them with their basic functions. With the camera settings, if you don't enable camera settings, you can still use a lot of the features, but you would then miss out on some of the augmented reality features that a lot of the apps have. I'll go into that as well. Don't worry, I will show you what that looks like and how that works and why that would be the case. But again, when we're using our apps, when we're using the internet, do it safely. So be aware of those settings. If you're helping maybe a sibling or a child with it who is on the younger side, just be aware of which settings are enabled and not enabled on that device. I already mentioned with the apps with the cost factor, a lot of them are going to be free, but we'll have things that you can activate within the app to add features or to upgrade to a premium version of the app. The ones I'm going to show you are all ones that have basic functionality with the free version. So there might be some annoying boxes to click, but they are all usable as the free version. All of this said, these are not library owned or maintained or produced apps. So we can't control that content. So the examples that I'm showing you are just examples that I've used, that I found that were interesting, that worked well for me, but these are not apps that are necessarily endorsed by the library or produced by them. So use caution when you're downloading anything, and make sure you know what you're clicking. So getting into the nitty-gritty of some of the key features that I look for when I'm looking for a stargazing or astronomy app. And the number one thing that I look for in terms of a really nice to have feature is night vision in dark mode. So it can take your eyes at least 20 to 40 minutes to get their night vision. And basically that's when your eyes adapt to low light levels and you're able to see things more clearly. As soon as your eyes are exposed to another bright light, kind of resets that clock. So if you're using an app to find a constellation or to find a planet, and you're in that nice night mode setting, but then a pop-up comes up that's really bright, might be annoying because it's going to cause you to have to readjust your eyes a little bit before you're able to see it as clearly in the sky again. So a lot of the apps will have a feature where you can turn them into not just dark mode like your phone might have built in, but a red light mode. Red light mode is really common in astronomy and in other activities that you would do at night outside. It's a kind of light, red light is one that will let you see what's going on around you. And especially if it's on a dim setting though, it's not going to disrupt that process of your eyes having their night vision, getting that adjustment there. There's a lot of, I can go into a lot of the technical biology of why that works, but we have a very short program, so I can't get into the nitty-gritty with you, but give your eyes 20 to 40 minutes to adjust to being outside at night when you're using this app. And if you have that red light night vision function, definitely use it. Location-based information. So this is the setting where I was telling you about where the phones might ask you to be able to detect your location. And in a lot of cases, it'll give you different options for that, where you can say, no, absolutely not. I don't want you to know where I am. I will type in a location and you can use that. Some of them will give you the option to allow location access once. So every time you use it, you would have to click OK. Yes, you can know my location. And others will ask you to just click that setting to let them know your location all the time. That's going to be very much a personal preference, what you're comfortable with sharing. Always be aware of that and what you're authorizing the app to know. Again, very much a personal choice as to how you enable that, but I will say that all these apps across the board, even if you don't enable that location services, will have a way that you can manually type in a city state and get your location set up that way. And the reason that that location is important is that the night sky looks different depending on where you are on the planet. Something will be above or below the horizon. It'll be in a different part of the orbit. So in order to show you what's up in that sky, it needs to know at least roughly where you're standing to give you that accurate picture. And that's going to especially come into play with the augmented reality, which we're going to get to now. So with augmented reality, the phone is using a combination of a bunch of different sensors on your phone to detect where you are, which direction you're pointing the phone, to get an idea of what the sky is behind that. And as you do that, it can overlay the constellation outlines on the phone screen so that you can see, I'm looking at this portion of the sky, and it'll have that outline of the constellation right where you're looking so that you can more easily find other features like planets or comets, or to know which direction to look when the ISS flies over. So there's a lot of different overlays that you can check. It's going to depend on the individual app as to what those exactly look like and which features they show. In general, I'm going to recommend that you unclick most of them and give yourself very simple lines and only check the things that you're specifically looking for, especially when you get started. Because if you have so much information on the screen, it makes it a lot harder then to look for what you're actually wanting to find. There's a lot of visual clutter to sort through when you're already trying to sort through visually what's up in the sky. So that's the words that we're looking at on screen. Now we're going to get into showing you some of the examples of what this looks like on a few of the apps that I found. So I'm going to start it off right away with our official NASA app. So this is the official NASA app. It has direct links and updates to all of their active missions. It also has updates on some of their partnership programs with the European Space Agency, ESA, or JAX, the Japanese Space Agency. So it has all of those active missions there, and it includes information on launches and where the ISS is. So this is a screenshot here in the middle shows you what it looks like if you're tracking the ISS. So if you know that we're going to have a flyover of the ISS coming up soon, you can kind of use that map to visually see as it's approaching where you might be looking for it, so you know exactly when to look up in the sky. This kind of gives you an idea of what it looks like on the screen for the schedule for the ISS schedule. It gives you the date that it's going to happen, what time it is, and then how long it'll be visible for and how bright it's going to be. So definitely type in questions if you see stuff like this and you're not sure what exactly data it's showing or how it works. Ask away. We'll get to that and we can go back to these slides during the Q&A if there's something that you wanted to go back and look at in more detail. So ISS schedule and then the ISS tracking. And then to the right of that, on the right side of the screen, just as a quick screenshot of the upcoming launches that they have scheduled. As you know, we're here in Florida. Weather is sometimes a little bit unpredictable. So these launches do regularly change and update based on current weather conditions. If you recently watched the Artemis 1 launch, you know, that got pushed back several times with our storms and weather before it finally went up. So these are wonderful and super fun to watch, and using these apps can kind of give you a great idea of where to look in the night sky for those. Launches are a little bit easier to find because we just, you know, here in Hillsborough County, we just look a little bit northeast and we're good to go. We know which direction the Cape is and we can see it that way. But if we're looking at something like the ISS or trying to find one of the planets that's in the sky right now, there are some other apps that are going to give you a little bit better idea of that. So some more examples of the apps and what they look like for the various settings that I talked about. First app I pulled up here is the Pocket Universe app. This is an app that has a free version and a paid version. The free version works pretty well. It has some advertisements that pop up that might get annoying or in the way. But other than that, it still has basic functions. So like a lot of the apps, when you first pull it up, it's going to give you a menu of the different things that you could want to look for. So do you want to look at, do you want to look for planets? Do you want to look for satellites? That kind of thing. And you also see it has the AR button, the augmented reality button. That's another option there. So the middle picture here gives you an idea of what it looks like when you're holding that phone up at night and looking. So I have mine pointed roughly north, and you can see that it showed the outline of Ursa Minor there. And most of the apps are very similar to this, where when you point it at a constellation, when you kind of center that in your field of vision, it'll illuminate the outlines of the constellation, and then it'll pop up the name, and a lot of times also something that's clickable where you can expand that and get more information about the specific thing that you're looking for. At the very bottom of the screen, you see it has different settings for either allowing motion or not. So if you have the motion turned off, you kind of just use your finger to scroll and to make the image move on the screen, and then turn yourself based on that. If you have the motion detection turned on, all you do is hold up the screen, and as you turn, the screen automatically moves with you. So 2 different ways of doing it. It's going to depend on your comfort level and what you are comfortable having set on your phone. And on the right, did a quick screenshot of the different planets that were visible when that image was taken. So you can see the planet name. Magnitude kind of refers to the brightness of it, of what you can see when it's in the sky. And then it gives you the time that that planet sets. So that's the time that that planet goes below the horizon where we can't see it anymore. All right, so that is the night vision settings on the Pocket Universe app. Here's another app, and I picked this one because this app is really nice. It has a lot of really easy, fun to use features, but it's a little bit annoying because there are paid versions of it that they would really love for you to pay for. The free version works great, but you're going to get a lot of those pop-ups asking you to subscribe or upgrade to that paid version. So something to keep in mind that with the apps that offer the in-app purchases, if they're a free app, you might run into this kind of a thing. It still works. You absolutely don't have to pay for any of these upgrades. Just be aware of it, that could come up, could possibly disrupt your night vision if it pops up at the wrong time. So kind of be aware of that. I did a little, gave you some tips there on where you can click to turn those off. So for the location-based services, this is kind of what it'll look like for you, where you can click don't allow or allow, and where you can click through and X out the upgrade option, X that out, click the not now, click the X, and it'll go right back to that free version of it. One of the other settings that's really neat to look for in terms of your features is the viewing conditions. Great if we have a planet that's having a particularly bright moment out there that's super visible, but if it's overcast, or if there's something else going on where it's just not ideal to see it, then there's no point to going outside if it's overcast and cloudy or whatnot. So a lot of these apps will have the different options for viewing conditions, kind of give you an idea of when might be better to look, and they'll give you an idea of when the next flyby is on satellites and things of that nature. Here's a few more settings examples. Turning that location on or off, where you can either set it automatically or manually. That's the same thing. If you hit manually, you just type in your location and it'll give you that view. Same for the camera. You can click don't allow or allow. Just remember, if you click don't allow, you won't be able to use the augmented reality version of it. I did a picture of it where you can see even inside a building in my office, I was able to point it in the direction of Ursa Major, and it showed me exactly where it was had I not been looking at a wall. So that's kind of what it looks like if you have that overlay. So imagine that on a night sky. You're out there looking, and you have the sky in real time there, and it gives you that overlay where you can kind of line up what you're looking at versus what the constellation looks like. And we mentioned those viewing conditions. There are apps that are specifically geared towards giving you that kind of information for the viewing conditions. It's not going to give you information on the constellations or the planets, but it's going to let you know whether it's too bright out, whether it's overcast. A big issue in astronomy is light pollution. If you live in a city like we do here in Tampa, all of those street lights, all of those building lights build up, and all that ambient light around us means it's harder to see the stars in the night sky. So if you look at those maps, you can kind of get an idea of, hey, so it might be a little bit too bright to see this really dim but interesting planet here, but I can drive a little bit north. Maybe I can make a little trip over to Cedar Key. Has some beautiful dark skies there. So keep that in mind if you're looking at something that might be a little bit harder to detect. And if you want to get out there and look at some of those maybe harder to see things that you can't quite see with the naked eye, you could borrow a telescope from the library. I'm not kidding. So libraries are not just for picking up books, picking out digital content. We also have three-dimensional physical objects that you can check out and take home. We have a ton of educational models and toys and equipment like this that you can check out from our libraries. So the big guidelines for that is that these are housed at 2 of our locations. They are at the John F. Germany Public Library downtown and the Sefner Mango Library in the eastern part of the county. So those are the only 2 places where you can pick these items up. They're not at every location, but if you go to our catalog, if you go to our website, you can browse and see what's available. Now you can't put these on hold, but head over to that library and you can check those out for 3 weeks at a time. I think that's pretty awesome. I love astronomy. I love looking at the night sky, but honestly, I can't invest in a nice telescope. I wouldn't get used enough. I would feel bad about spending money on something that I don't use all the time. But every once in a while, take my library card over to one of those libraries, pick up a telescope and use it for a few days, and I get to have that same experience without investing a ton in a new telescope. So that is our little resource highlight there. See if I can maybe show you a picture of what's up the website in real time. Yeah, so you just go to our website, go to that Books and More tab at the top. Educational games and models are on there, and that is our collection. You've got models, you've got microscopes and telescopes and globes, all sorts of stuff. You can browse all of those there and find out which location they're at. Definitely encourage you to check those out. And I see you guys hanging out there. Haven't seen any questions come in yet, so I've either thoroughly answered everything you could possibly want to know, in which case, good on me. Ms. Vivian's going to come on camera here in a moment, and so I'll read those as they come in. Hey, Ms. Vivian, do we have any questions coming in yet?
Yes, actually, they're still coming in. So one of the questions, someone had logged in a little late. So they had noticed that one of the apps had a charge, but they were wondering if that was the same for the other apps.
So they, across the board, most of the apps, all the ones I picked today are available on iOS and Android. So they're available on both of those platforms. The NASA app is completely, totally free. It's the official NASA app. There's no charge for that. So that one is definitely completely free, no upgrades, none of those shenanigans. The other apps will all have free versions and then offer in-app upgrades or in-app purchases or different versions of the app to download. So you'll see one that says like Pocket Universe, and the other one will say Pocket Universe Lite. Lite is generally your indication that that's the free version of the app. And that's the one where you'll see those like advertisements pop up.
Okay. One of the other questions was pretty much out of all the apps, if they're wanting to start for the first time using any of the apps, which do you recommend? What do you find more user-friendly, in your opinion? Like, what would be the best one to maybe start with?
So it really depends on what you're specifically looking to do. I would say it's really going to be a personal preference in terms of what's going to work well for your specific device and how you kind of see things. So I would recommend downloading several of the free ones to get started. So the ones that I use most frequently is the Pocket Universe is one that I use a lot. I like it because it's very simple, just in terms of finding things. The Night Sky app is great. It has a lot of the extra bells and whistles type features, but it can get annoying because the free version does have a lot of those pop-up advertisements asking you to upgrade. And then the Skyview Lite is another one of the ones where it's the light indicating that it's a free version. It works fantastic though. And of all the ones that have the augmented reality, I find the Skyview Lite is one of the best ones for the free augmented reality features.
Okay, thank you. And then last was more just of a comment. They just said, thank you so much. This was very informative. And they had no idea that they could actually borrow telescopes from the library.
Yeah, it's such a hidden feature that I wish more people would know about. So I always I try to hype this resource as much as possible. hcplc.org/books/Realia, REALIA. That's kind of the library word for tools and objects that you can check out. So instead of books, it would be Realia. If you're in the catalog itself, if you're already in the catalog looking for a book and you think of, hey, I might want to look for this instead, you don't have to go back to the website to go into it that way. You can just change, instead of looking for books, you can change that to 3D object, I think is what they call it within the book catalog. See if I can pull that up for you and show you that. So when you're in the catalog, yeah, it says 3D object there. So if you were looking for books, instead of checking books, you would go down here to other and check 3D object. And that's going to pull up all of the ones that we have, all the 3D objects. And once you have that selected, you can narrow it down by, you know, I just want to see telescopes, and I'll just pull up the telescope devices or anything that's a 3D object that has telescope in the name. So Sky and Telescope is a brand. They also make globes, so you can check out maybe the Mars globe. So that's another fun way to do it. All right, any other questions coming in? I think we're about done. So thank you all so much for joining us. We'll let Ms. Vivian give us our contact information here.
Yeah, so if you need to contact us, you can contact us through hcplc.org/contact. You can give us a call at 813-273-3652. If you're looking for programs and events, that would be at hcplc.org/events. And for more about this series, that's going to be found at hcplc.org/tech topics.
And our next tech topic is going to be in the new year. So today is the last tech topic of the year. So we're going to be going to a new time slot next year. If you've been joining us for a while, we've previously been starting these at 5:30. We've been getting feedback from folks that that's a little bit too close to when they're getting home from work and getting supper ready. So we're gonna try this out at 6 p.m. in the new year. So our first one is going to be the first Wednesday of the month at 6 p.m. So January 4th at 6 p.m. And our topic is going to be desktop cutting machines. So some of you crafty, handy makers might be lucky enough to have a Silhouette Cameo or a Cricut or any of those brand name desktop cutting devices. Maybe Santa left one for you for Christmas. We're going to kind of go through what those are, how they work, and some basic functionality, and how you can learn how to use one at the library. So we look forward to seeing you for that. Thank you so much for joining us, folks. Thank you, Vivian.
Thank you. Have a good night.
See you next time. Thanks, folks.